Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AAS YouTube channel. And this is in the Sky and Telescope series. And I am very happy to have Gregg Dinderman with us today. Hi, Gregg.
Hello.
Where are you located at?
I'm in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Yeah, okay.
We're just outside of Cambridge. Our offices are in Cambridge. We've been working remotely, but soon we'll be working back at the office.
Nice. And let's see, I've been reading that this is the year of the 17-year locust. And so are you seeing them there, and how are they?
Not here. I think that's a southern thing.
Wow.
More down by DC and Virginia and so forth.
Okay. Okay. So it's a little too north for them then. Okay.
It also may be a little too early in the season here. So we'll find out.
When I was 10 years old, I lived in Arlington, Virginia, and I remember the 17-year locust coming out. It was an amazing sight. See that many millions of billions of locusts coming out. So, okay, interesting. It gets a little too cold or something up there.
Talk about alien invaders, huh?
Yeah.
They look like small alien invaders.
Absolutely. Gregg, what do you do for Sky and Telescope?
I'm the illustration director, and the principal part of my job is directing and making diagrams for Sky and Telescope and our various other publications and products. Now, that's a fairly broad range of things. I work with some very talented people, and sometimes I direct them to do that as well. I don't do a lot of the illustrations are commissioned by the art director, editorial illustrations. I work on more the technical side of things. The more technical it is, the more likely I've had a hand in it. So, you know,
because a lot of the illustrations and graphics are, I mean, it's one of the high points of Sky and Telescope, I think, is just how wonderful those are. So how long have you been working for Sky and Telescope?
I've been working at S&T since 1995. Wow. I'm the longest employed full-time person, full-time, part-time person at Sky and Telescope. I think, maybe not part-time. I think we have a couple editors who work a day a week still, some of the older ones, but I'm the longest full-time employed person at Sky and Telescope.
Well, congratulations on reaching that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And did you always do illustration for S&T when you were first? So when you started in 1995, is that what you were hired to do, was to do the graphics and illustration?
Yes, more like just charts and diagrams. Some of these, you know, it's been a long time, and there were certain styles, but they were just within a year or two of starting computer-aided graphics there. So things had been done by hand just up till a year or two before I started. And then what I brought to this gumbo of Sky and Telescope is my background is actually not in graphic design, but in industrial design. So I'm a product designer by training, and designing things for mass production is my specialty, for doing things over and over again, thinking about the future, about how this diagram may change in the future, how we might reuse it, how we might store it, how we can take parts out of it and reuse those. I think that way. And I also think in 3D, which most graphic designers don't think in 3D, which makes me a little bit different. And most illustrators don't. So, you know.
Well, some of that I imagine comes in, for example, in telescope designs or things along those lines. There's a lot of common elements.
I have a previous life. I was a machinist and a mechanical foreman, or mechanical caretaker sometime before that. So I've had years of metal machining and welding and pipe fitting and soldering and you know what. So I have a lot of hands-on experience, and I come from a long line of machinists. I grew up in a family. My father was a machinist. My brother was a tool and die maker. Wow. As it turns out, those skills come in very handy. And I pretended not to know any of those things until I was in my mid-20s. And then I fell back on those and did some of those things. And then my first bachelor's degree was in philosophy, which allowed me to unload boxcars, and along with the history majors. Then after that, I got a job there. They trained me for years on all the metal machining and maintenance processes. And I quit there and went back to school in industrial design. I didn't take an art class in my life till I was 29 years old.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm a late adopter.
Cool. Cool. So I think it might be kind of fun to maybe to walk through some of your portfolio. And the different styles, the different elements. So why don't we go ahead and do a walkthrough? So Gregg was kind enough to put together a little something. So let's just go ahead and walk through that. And this will be, let's start off on the right one. And we'll start off with number one.
These are all recent things from this year. Any particular month, I may or may not have something illustrative. It kind of depends on the year. But I also want to include some of our old chestnuts here, the kinds of things we do many of and over again. What you'll see here on the upper right are a Victorgram and a star chart. And these all had styles before I came to S&T, but I'm probably had as big a hand as anybody in defining and redefining these styles. We're very much an evolutionary kind of place rather than a revolutionary kind of place with these things. So these all have, there's a format and a customary understanding of these, and I don't upset that apple cart. Our readers are used to seeing these, but I have refined the look and feel, changed fonts, changed styles, changed colors, changed lots of things from these. So and you'll see some of the things I've done later that help with that process. I do a fair amount of everything. I do charts and graphs. I do, as you'll see down below, and in the middle, I do explain it diagrams, as you'll see on the left. I do some space art, and I'm not a specialist in any one of these fields. I just do all of them as need be. These are always a mixture. They're often vector-based, but they're often a mixture of bitmap and vector-based. Some things vectors are better for, some things bitmaps are better for. And fortunately, the software allows me to use both whenever I need them. Sometimes I do most all of these in Adobe Illustrator. Sometimes I don't. I use 3D programs to generate a fair amount of stuff, and I pull the results of that in, and then I put Illustrator on top of it. I've taught many classes and taught many people on computer graphics, one kind or another. And the thing I always emphasize to them is feel free to go back and forth as you need it. Go from your hand to the computer, back to your hand, into PitMap, back to the vectors, you know, whatever you need to do. Go. Don't be stuck in one platform, one program, one way of doing things. There's many ways to skin a cat.
Right tool for the right job. So I'm curious on the 3D stuff, on the artistic side of the house. What do you use for your 3D tools? Are you using like Blender or something like that?
I use a couple things. I've used SketchUp for simple spacecraft and things. And then I use Strata 3D, or the new version of Strata 3D, when I want to render more complicated things. And please understand, most of the things we need to render at Sky and Telescope are fairly simple. The bump maps and the surface maps, albedo maps, may be fairly complicated, but the shapes themselves are fairly simple and fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of getting sufficient resolution for the task at hand. But if in doubt, like for instance, a lot of these things are straight Illustrator, like the little, you can barely see, it's a little small here, it runs bigger in the magazine, but the little globe that you're right in the middle that you'll see that shows the path of the recent annular eclipse. And you'll see that, and that's
yeah, that's a clear, that's a vector. Although it's rasterized here, you can see the rasterization. But yeah,
for the sake of ease of showing, I rasterize all of this stuff, but a lot of it doesn't. But you see the binoculars there; those are all vector lines on top of a raster background. We do that a fair amount, and of course, the bottom left is a raster image with vector data on top of it. The nice thing, what I learned about computer graphics is that putting the stuff in the first place, doing the original, isn't really any faster than doing it by hand. The big advantage is in editing and reusing and taking apart and being able to modify and learning from your experience. You're not starting over. You're not, you don't have to start over. And we do a fair amount of maps. And the middle one you'll see in October. It's coming up. That's recent. The other two, sometimes we do some simple relief maps like the one on the side. Sometimes we'll do other kinds of maps. We have mapping software that projects this in different kinds of projections. Sometimes some of the editors will actually write a small database that I can use to project. Some of them don't. It kind of depends on the skills. We have some editors who've been very, very skilled with writing computer software, writing databases, and some others aren't. The little one, the simple one, the German equatorial mount on the lower right is a simple explanation of what goes on with an equatorial mount. That one was done in a 3D program. It was just done in a very simple way. But the one above it that's kind of rendered out, the bluish one, the blueprint look, is all Illustrator, but it was based originally on a SketchUp diagram that I exported vectors from SketchUp and then pulled it in, cleaned up all the vectors, and then gave it a style.
Nice.
We apply the style. I'm unfortunately, usually people hire illustrators according to their style. So you want this style, they hire them like Crayolas in a Crayola box. I want blue, I want red, I want the happy style, I want the sad style, I'm not like that. I do little bits of this, little bits of that, and I modify it to, which is a bad way for making money and as an illustrator, but it's a great way for helping a magazine shine.
Yes.
So, and that's the point here. All the little ones in the middle were done with SketchUp and then pulled into Illustrator. And the technical thing on the lower left is all Illustrator. That's just me.
Very nice.
Yep.
Very nice. And here we go on 3, some miscellaneous.
This is miscellaneous stuff. Again, I do a little bit of space art, like the magnetar in the lower right. This is on the lower left is about mapping Mars and how they get more resolution by tipping the spacecraft. When you tip it, you can get finer pieces. If they need a little bit of graphics on collateral or whatever it takes, like a T-shirt or a CD label, I'll do that. I do spot illustrations like the little ones you see on the middle left. And then I do cutaways of diagrams. We do, we're sky and telescope, not just sky. And so there's a considerable emphasis on telescope. That one on the right was done because we needed a generic telescope that had enough detail to show big. That's all vector, by the way. Entirely vector. But we needed to have one that was not associated with any particular manufacturer. We try very, very hard to avoid supporting any one manufacturer over another. So having generic scopes to use for illustrations is fairly important.
So I'm curious, how long did it take to do this vector of this generic telescope? It's
hard to say because I'm working on several things all the time. And I'll come back to things. I'll work on something, come back to it, do something, come back to it. It's hard to say. It might have been a day.
Wow.
This kind of thing is not terribly difficult. I've had things, a good raster illustration, like good space art, can take you 30 to 40 hours. But I'm, one of the things that vector, I've been using Adobe Illustrator since version 1.1 in 1987.
Yep. I could share a little something there. I'll see if I can find it real quick.
You have too, eh?
There's a connection. Maybe I'll see if
version, the first, it was all black and white. You couldn't do colors. And working on it, that 9-inch porthole that was a Macintosh back in 1987, I was enamored. I was in love, and so you learn these things through the wrist. And then after you do them for a while, you get very accustomed to it. It goes very, very quickly.
Indeed. Okay. And we got...
And I do publications. One of my jobs is to fill in whenever there's a problem, when the art director has an illness or is not able to do something. So I have to be able to take over the magazine and lay it out, which I have a few times. I also do occasionally a single issue publication, like 60 Mysteries. That's entirely me, head to stern, top to bottom. And I want to thank all the wonderful astronomers who contributed little pieces for that. That was really a lot of fun. I do all the products. So like the labels on globes, those are all me. Every time you see a 12-inch globe or a 6-inch globe and it's labeled, that's me. But however, all of those things and all of the charts begin with a plot. And the plot is not me. The plot is done by proprietary software that Roger Sinnott invented and that Tony Flanders redid in C+ or C. So they have a proprietary software program that generates plots, and then we manipulate these plots. In the case of the celestial globe in the lower right-hand side, those are done as a daisy, as a large group of petals, and as they fold over the cardboard 12-inch globe, they create that globe, and he projects them the correct way, and then I take those projections and style them according to our style. Cool. With our raster image underneath, you can see it's blurred to get the Milky Way, so forth. And then I do websites when needed. I don't anymore. Website technology really took off and I didn't. It was not my thing. But back in the old days when I needed a quick website like the one for Night Sky, I made that. And it was fully functional, but it doesn't use any of the modern things. The eclipse glasses, the upper side, I make eclipse glasses. Those just a faint little cutout from our catalog. But if you see those eclipse glasses with the blazes on them, that's me. And the Pocket Sky Atlas I did with Roger Sinnott. Roger did all the plots, but I did all the cover design, the back cover design, and we worked together on the inside. When I work with Roger, I have to say that he's wonderful, by the way, and he has a lot to do with the look and feel of everything he touches.
Nice. Very well done. Very well done. All right. And then we got some
and that's a layout. I did the illustration for this, but somebody else laid this out. So this was something was wrapped in 3D and then inverted so it's shown, and then used some techniques to make it glow coming out. We wanted to show how bad and how terrible light pollution is.
Right. And this is back in 2007, I see in the lower left here.
Oh yeah.
So it hasn't.
I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this to the point back when we made things that we couldn't print. We make them and we couldn't get any printer to handle because they were too complicated. There's too much stuff, you know. That's never a problem anymore, really. You know, there's always software glitches, but that's never an issue. But we made things that were so bad, so full of stuff, we just couldn't print them.
Wow. Okay. All right. And then another one.
That's a layout I made, and that's Casey Reid's illustration. And Casey worked for us for 2003 or 4 to 2010. He's wonderful, by the way, and we hired him. He's a space artist and a damn fine one, but he also does wonderful diagrams and illustrations. Unfortunately, after he was deployed to Afghanistan, and when he came back, he found a job out at MIT Lincoln Labs, and we couldn't keep him. And I love Casey's artwork, and I'll use it whenever I have the opportunity. And so my job here is to show the wonderfulness of the artwork, to use the type and everything else to reflect the nice artwork, and also to give a story. We're very much content driven at S&T.
Very beautiful. Very nice. A little shout out to the lead author here. So, hey, Sumner. Very good. Okay. And
recent ad. Unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Ad, but ads are a fact of life, and this is a house ad, and I make them. So this is a recent house ad that just went in the September issue, maybe. So you'll see this in September. And these are some of the tours we have, and I recommend anybody who's interested to take one of these fabulous tours. You'll have a wonderful time, and our editors will guide you. And I can't think of a nicer thing to happen.
Yeah, I have some expert guidance. For example, Kelly.
Yes.
He just organized the annular. So we talked with a few people about that. Very cool. So I'll share a little blast from the past with you here. Let's see if you recognize this. Do you recognize this?
I do. I do.
How about that? Bet you haven't seen that for a while.
No, but I remember when it came out. I remember the first time I saw that screen. You've been around for a while, haven't you?
So I picked up Adobe Illustrator when I was working with the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And so this would have been circa 2000, 2001 is when I first started cutting my chops on Illustrator. But the connection here is a little bit different. The second person listed here, Bill Paxton, is somebody that I have worked closely with for the past 15 years or so on a different project. But yeah, so that's why I bring it up. So I just find it curious that Bill was also one of the original authors of Adobe Illustrator.
You know, not every art school was so enamored of computer illustration. I remember computer work. I was a graduate student at RISD, and one of the things I remember from that is people saying, well, computers just aren't appropriate for this design work back in the day. They don't feel that way now, and they haven't for 30 years, 20 years, but back in the day, you know, people, it was a hard sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so much today. Even for fine art, right? You can
even for
illustration and in fine art. So yeah, it's come a ways. So, well, that's very cool. Very cool. Let's see how we do. So just get a sense of the workflow on what you got. So in any given week, roughly how many illustration or graphic projects do you have in the air at any given time? 10, 100?
Per month, it's someplace little. If you divide it into little pieces, it's probably someplace between 20 to 30, 20 to 35. But most of those are very small things. And remember, when I show you these things, you know, some of those things like the star chart or the victogram could have been done by a person who works with me named Leah Tuchon, who's a fabulous illustrator. We do work collaboratively a lot. I don't hesitate to pick something up someone else has worked on, and I don't hesitate to let somebody else pick something up that I've worked on. I give our art director, Terry Dubé, carte blanche to pick up anything and change it as however she needs it. I haven't always done that with art directors, but she's a real pro, and she knows exactly what she's doing. She makes great decisions, and whatever she would do is going to be at least as good or better than I would. And which has always been my motto with people, always hire people who are better than you are. Always. It always works. It always works. Not only will they raise your whole organization, but they'll make you better too.
Absolutely. So speaking of, let's, in case there's some budding illustrators or some more experienced illustrators watching this, would people get in touch with Terry if they're interested in maybe contributing pieces to Sky and Telescope?
They certainly can, but you know, what we're really about, we're content driven. The first thing I look for when hiring somebody, two things. First thing is, do you love astronomy? If you don't love astronomy, you don't belong with us.
Right.
That's just the way. It's not a gun for hire kind of thing always. We need people who love astronomy. That's the first thing I look for. And the second thing I look for, and pick this up with Leah, is can you draw? I'm not particularly great with drawing, but I can do it. I can, if I give enough time. Leah is fabulous with drawing. She's a fabulous drafts person. So she's worked for Marvel, worked for Mad Magazine, worked for Intel. She only works 2 days a week for us, but she does lots of this stuff. So I always hire. Casey was great. I always pick people who are better than I am. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you look for is an illustrator. And if you're not an illustrator at S&T, the most important thing you need to do is write really well. Love astronomy, write really well. And if you can write really well and draw, that's really great.
You're gold. You're
golden.
Very cool. Very good. So let's see, is there anything else you would like to share about the S&T illustration process?
The process. Well, a good share of my job is actually spent administrating these things, tracking them through the process. I have a large sheet, electronic sheet, a spreadsheet, and I follow these diagrams along and making sure nothing gets lost, making sure everything's gone through the editorial process. As I mentioned, we are content driven. And we're an editorial, specifically an editorially driven magazine. We always have been. Some magazines are art driven or design driven, and some are marketing driven, and some are customer driven, and some are ad driven. We're none of those things. We are content driven and editorially driven.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider my role at S&T kind of like the secondary mirror and a reflecting telescope. I don't point the telescope, and I don't collect all the data. The editors are the primary mirror. They collect the data. You know, the editors and the editor-in-chief decide where the telescope points.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to take that data, reflect it, and sharpen it, and make it clear for the observer to see, or for the reader to see. And so what we constantly are trying to do is simplify things as much as possible, but no simpler, as they say, as Einstein said. We constantly trying to make everything available in ordinary language for everyday enthusiasts without dumbing anything down.
Right.
The last thing we want to do is dumb anything down. We want the full story and the honest story, and tell no lies.
Cool. Very nice. That is awesome. Gregg, I want to thank you so much for sharing some of your pieces, some of your portfolio, and just in general how the illustration graphic process takes place at S&T. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.